This engine burns 1 liter of oil every 2 hours. It consumes a liter of oil every 2 hours of work. The driver always keeps a bottle of engine oil in the vehicle. Originally, the owner planned to have a full engine overhaul. Because of the oil burning issue, the vehicle had lost power. It hasn't had any work for months. The owner has had no income source, so the overhaul has been delayed until now. He even thought about selling the vehicle. Luckily, he met the mechanics here. They said with just 3,000 rupees, they could fix the oil burning problem. No need for a full overhaul. At first, the owner couldn't believe it could really be fixed. But he thought 3,000 rupees wasn't much money. So he agreed to give it a try without hesitation. The veteran mechanics, with years of experience, already knew exactly which cylinder had the problem. To them, this was just a minor issue, and an easy one to solve. Cheap repairs have their own methods. They go straight to the root of the problem. No need to take everything apart. Moreover, this engine's cylinder head is a split type, which makes the repair even simpler. The mechanics take their time, sipping tea, before continuing to remove the cylinder head bolts. Once the bolts are removed, two mechanics work together to lift off the cylinder head. After removing the head, we can see that the first cylinder has severe carbon buildup. The mechanic's diagnosis was spot on. How could he identify it without a compression gauge? That's the skill of a true master. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Now let's zoom in the camera. We can see a thick layer of carbon on top of the piston. At this point, the mechanic is 100% certain that the piston rings are damaged. Next, they begin removing the oil pan. Since there's no engine stand here, they usually use a forklift to move the engine. But with fuel prices rising, to keep costs down, the mechanics had to flip this engine over 1,000 pounds. Completely by hand, propping it up with a few wooden blocks. Then they began dismantling the oil pan assembly. Some of the Luoquan masters had to do it all manually. It would be great if they had an air impact wrench. With an air gun, their efficiency would definitely improve a lot. Just watching them makes you anxious. After removing all the oil pan bolts, the master used a hammer to tap a screwdriver into the gap. Then he pried the oil pan out with the screwdriver. Once the oil pan was removed, they could take off the first connecting rod bearing cap. There was no torque wrench here, nor a suitable 13mm socket. So the master had to use an open-ended wrench and tap it with a hammer to loosen the connecting rod cap nuts. Then he unscrewed the nuts by hand. Next, they removed the bolts and bearing shells. To make it easier to take out the piston, the master clamped the pulley using a water pipe in front, turning the first cylinder to top dead center. Then another master at the back used a wooden stick to gently push the piston out. After the piston was removed, to speed things up, the masters started dividing the work. Grinding the carbon buildup on the crankshaft requires a certain level of skill, with high precision. It's done by the most experienced master. A younger master, meanwhile, was responsible for removing the piston rings. After taking off the piston rings, He scraped the carbon deposits off the piston clean. Once everything was cleaned, it could be reinstalled. When the piston was halfway reinstalled, the master brought over new piston rings to install. Since there was no ring compressor available, the master had to install the rings one by one manually. First, he fitted the oil ring onto the piston. After the oil ring was installed, the master tightened it using a section of water pipe. Gotta say, this method really works. Learned a new trick today. These masters are truly full of creativity. Who would have thought of that? As the saying goes, if your mind doesn't give up, there's always more solutions than problems. The next two compression rings were installed using the same method. After reinstalling the piston, the connecting rod bearings can now be reinstalled. Before installation, apply some engine oil for lubrication. This prevents dry starts that could cause friction and wear. After fitting the bearing caps, the master first hand tightened the bolts. Then he used an open-ended wrench to tighten them. Since the open-ended wrench couldn't reach the required torque, the master borrowed a socket wrench from next door to finish the job. Once reinforced, they could reinstall the oil pan. To prevent oil leakage, before installation, the master scraped off the old gasket material from the pan. Both the oil pan and gasket surface were cleaned and coated evenly with a layer of sealant. A new gasket was placed onto the oil pan. Then another layer of sealant was applied on top of the gasket. After that, the oil pan was installed back in place. Even though the repair is inexpensive, every detail is handled with great care. That's true craftsmanship worth admiring. After the oil pan was installed, several masters worked together to lift the engine upright. It was clearly much harder than lowering it down earlier. It took all their strength and effort to get the engine back upright. Once the engine was upright, they installed a new cylinder head gasket. Then they applied gasket sealant. After that, the cylinder head was mounted back. Once the cylinder head was secured, they installed the high-pressure fuel line. Next, they tightened the cylinder head bolts. These bolts must not be over-tightened. Otherwise, the excessive stress could cause damage. Not only could it strip the threads inside and outside the bolt holes, but it might also lead to bolt deformation. Usually, a torque wrench is used to check this, and around 50 Newton meters is about right. Those who can do it purely by feel are true masters. Once the head was tightened, they installed the push rods. Then they fitted the rocker arms. After the rocker arms were installed, the master began adjusting the valves. You can really tell the difference with an experienced master. He didn't even need a feeler gauge for valve clearance. He did it all by feel. That's truly impressive craftsmanship. After the valves were adjusted, the valve cover was then installed back in place. With that, the engine's oil burning problem was perfectly resolved. Now the repaired engine has been reinstalled. Onto the bulldozer. The master gave the starter a quick tap with a screwdriver, and it fired up instantly. No need to bleed the air. There was no sign of smoke, proving it's no longer burning oil. Now the engine runs as steady as a rock, smooth and stable. Although repairing this engine doesn't earn much, only about 100 RMB or so. The masters believe their true purpose is simply to fix the machine well. Each time they repair an engine, they feel a deep sense of accomplishment. It radiates a genuine pride from within. Perhaps that's the real charm of the repair craft.